Good evening. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Poonam Burde. In the last 24 hours, Bangladesh has once again erupted into complete chaos. Streets of Dhaka and other major cities saw mass protests, arson and mob attacks that mark one of the most volatile chapters in the country's recent history. The trigger? There was outrage over the killing of a 32-year-old student leader, Sharif Usman Hadi, a prominent figure in the movement that toppled the Sheikh Hasina government last year. Protests quickly spread nationwide. Radical crowds gathered outside Indian visa centers. Leading media offices were targeted, with protesters burning property, endangering journalists and clashing with security forces in scenes of utter lawlessness. But this is not an instant reaction or a spontaneous one. It's a vehement belief that the interim government's chief, Mohammad Yunus, saw this coming. Some others believe that he quietly watched as the pot first simmered and then boiled over. In recent months, voices both from inside and outside Bangladesh have raised very hard questions about Mohammad Yunus's regime's tolerance, if not tacit support for these radical elements. As Bangladesh teeters on the edge of deeper unrest, the world watches whether this latest wave of violence will be a passing flare-up, or will this be the beginning of a prolonged struggle, whether it's on political legitimacy, whether it's on radical influence, or the future of the nation's democratic identity itself. And here in India, the danger of a spillover is clear and present. But as the head of the interim government, Mohammad Yunus spoke about this particular incident last evening. He did talk about calling for calm, calling for restraint, which many say is nothing but mere lip service.
আইনশৃঙ্খলা রক্ষাকারী বাহিনী ও সংশ্লিষ্ট সংস্থাগুলোকে পেশাদারিত্বের সঙ্গে তদন্ত কার্যক্রম পরিচালনা করে সুযোগ দিন। রাষ্ট্র আইনের শাসন প্রতিষ্ঠায় সম্পূর্ণরূপে প্রতিশ্রুতিবদ্ধ। আমি আবারও স্পষ্টভাবে বলতে চাই, ওসমান হাদি ছিলেন পরাজিত শক্তি ফ্যাসিস্ট সন্ত্রাসীদের শত্রু। তার একান্ত ইচ্ছা ছিল আসন্ন নির্বাচনে প্রতিদ্বন্দ্বিতা করে নতুন বাংলাদেশ বিনির্মাণের পরবর্তী ধাপে সক্রিয় ভূমিকা রাখা। আগামী দিনগুলোতে আমাদের সবাইকে ধৈর্য, সংযম, সাহস ও দূরদর্শিতার সঙ্গে এগিয়ে যেতে হবে। অপপ্রচার ও গুজবে কান না দেই এবং যে কোনো হঠকারী সিদ্ধান্ত থেকে বিরত থাকে।
The head of the interim government in Bangladesh, Mohammad Yunus, shared that particular condemnation. He tried to shed some tears over the death of the radical leader Sharif Usman Hadi, whose mortal remains have now been flown into Bangladesh from Singapore, where he was receiving treatment and eventually succumbed to his injuries. But Mohammad Yunus made a hollow appeal, asking the citizens of Bangladesh to not take law into their own hands. But are they really listening? Because that appeal didn't find any takers. There were scenes that played out in the last 24 hours from the streets of Dhaka. This is exactly what happened last night, and India is bearing the brunt of it. The Assistant High Commission of India in Chittagong was a target. There was a violent mob that was right outside the Indian High Commission there in Chittagong. There were stones that were hurled at the mission. The premises were damaged. There were violent clashes with security personnel right outside, and all of this went up to the wee hours of this morning. No Indian diplomats or officials were injured, but the safety of our diplomatic staff or our diplomatic mission is extremely important, and that is now concerning for New Delhi. The widespread violence was targeted towards India, but also towards those who are believed to be moderately liberal there, or those who have been in support of Sheikh Hasina. Several offices and properties of the Awami League were targeted. They were vandalized and demolished. These kind of visuals that you saw all of last evening, all of last night, are not just mere protests, but there was arson and vandalism as well. Sheikh Mujib's home was also demolished, was brought down using a JCB by these protesters. This anti-India sentiment that we're seeing seems to be on a rise across Bangladesh. A 30-year-old Hindu, Deepu Chandra Das, was brutally lynched and set on fire by a mob yesterday. The victim was a garment factory worker at the Pioneer Knit Composite Factory. This is in the Square Mastabari area. The mob accused him of blasphemy for allegedly making derogatory remarks during a factory event. There's no real proof of that. Some reports suggest the remarks were as simple as him stating all religions are equal. But that seems to have irked this radical mob, who last evening took law into their own hands. At around 9 p.m, that mob surrounded Deepu Chandra Das and beat him to death. They tied him to a pole and then set him ablaze. The attackers tied his body to a tree at the Square bus stand and then set it on fire for everyone to watch. What did Mohammad Yunus do? Not a word of condemnation, not a tear shed for him. The situation in Dhaka continues to remain tense. Over the last 24 hours, like I've pointed out, these horrific scenes of arson, violence and vandalism have been emerging. Here's a ground report that exposes the extent of damage 24 hours on. Listen in.
Right now, I'm in front of one of the burned news media office. This is one of the leading Bangladeshi newspaper. This is the most readed Bangladeshi newspaper in the entire world. I'm here in front of the office of this burned media newspaper. Last night there was a big protest happened inside the entire Dhaka. There was few other places also burned. One just 500 or 300 meters from there. Another news media. The Daily Star buildings also was burned last night, and there was a huge protest after the young leader Sharif Usman Hadi's death. It was shot 1 week before, and last night he was confirmed dead in Singapore. And after that, there was lots of chaos inside the city. So this is one of the places I will show you around. So as you can see, there is already police have sealed the places, and there is it's become a crime scene zone. You can see there is police car, and also inside the building police are collecting the evidence. And this was one of the leading newspaper. Already they were not able to publish today's newspaper, and their online transmissions also not working properly, and it's been stopped actually, if I can say, as the police are heavily guarded here.
Anti-India sentiments have been simmering in Bangladesh following the fall of Sheikh Hasina's government last year. Many believe that the recent trigger has been the buzz of upcoming elections in the country. They're supposed to happen sometime in the first half of next year. A number of factors can be attributed to the violence. One is that the anti-India narrative distracts the public attention from the economic distress that we're seeing in Bangladesh. The pretext of external threats, as is being spoken of, is widely used to delay these elections, something that Mohammad Yunus was under extreme pressure to call for. Furthermore, India bashing also placates Islamists ahead of elections, and many would say that Mohammad Yunus has been giving a complete free hand to these radical elements in Bangladesh. It also aligns with China-Pakistan nexus that seems to be providing Bangladesh and the Mohammad Yunus regime leverage. A volatile situation then secures political advantage for Mohammad Yunus, who is not an elected leader, mind you, who was put there to ensure that there is a peaceful transition to power for democracy to prevail. It has been anything but in the last 1.5 years. So as we see this kind of sentiment that's being whipped up in Bangladesh against India, is this spillover going to have an effect on India? And if it does, the kind of hate that we're seeing there, is this something that is state sanctioned? That's what we ask here on Plain Speak.
They have to distract attention from the public in a way that would, give the ruling dispensation some advantages, since they have taken an anti-India line as part of their policy.
देखो इसमें इफेक्ट तो ये है, ये लोग शांत नहीं है। यूनिस जो है ये पूरा के पूरा सत्ता में रहने के लिए बहुत कुछ कोशिश कर रहे हैं।
There are certain forces who are not very friendly to India, who are trying to create a difficult situation in Bangladesh.
Let's open this up. Pinak Ranjan, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh, is with us. Tara Karta, former Director of NSCS. Asif Bin Ali, Bangladeshi journalist, is with us as well. Thank you all for joining us here on Plain Speak. Asif Bin Ali, I want to begin by asking you, what exactly is happening now? I mean, we saw the kind of scenes that transpired late last night, beginning last evening, all the way up to the wee hours of this morning. But has the situation bettered now in Bangladesh, or is it only going to be a downward spiral from here on?
Thank you very much for inviting me. The situation is still developing, and the situation is volatile. There is no doubt. But what happened last night, particularly like 7 or 8 hours ago from now, it was unthinkable. I don't think nobody in Bangladesh thought that in one morning, evening, a group of 200, 300 people will go and then start burning like country's two biggest newspaper, which are like the foundation of our free press. It was very shocking for everyone. And initially, I would say the government failed in order to protect those places. However, the military stepped in, and what we can see, like based on the report and the social media lives and everything, that military was able to like control the that mob without firing or without escalating any more further violence, because as you know, like in such situation, any kind of death by in the hand of the police or the state forces could have escalated the situation. So that's a good news that when they are trying to disperse this mob, there was no more violence from the state end. So that seems a good relief, because now the citizens are coming together to express their support for the newspaper, to express their support for the free press. And today morning, what happened, like some of the senior citizens of the country, civil society members, political party representatives went to the destroyed building of Daily Star and the Prothomalo. They publicly showed their support for that. And all over the country, there was condemnation of the violence. And it is also getting very clear that the people who carried out this violence, they're particularly involved with the far right threat that we are recently figuring out. And I would not disregard that these far right do particularly well preparing for such kind of event for some time since the brutal attack happened on Hadi. So on the ground, the situation is relatively under control. However, we would be able to confirmly say that it's fully under control maybe within next 12 or 24 hours.
And we do hope, for the sake of the country and for the sake of India, that things do not spiral out of control like they did late last night. But Ambassador Chakravarti, I want to ask you this. You know, the fact that India's missions were targeted, I mean, that's something that there has to be a red line that's drawn.
Indeed, I think there are international conventions, the Vienna Conventions, which guarantee the safety and security of a diplomatic mission. But I'm afraid this government has failed basically to provide good governance, and I think this is the problem now in Bangladesh. And I dare say that the violence against the Indian High Commission and the media house that you just mentioned, the Daily Star and Prothomalo, was completely organized. I don't think it was disorganized. It was meant to convey a message, whatever numbers they had gathered, and we know who are these forces. And I think these forces are acting against the interests not just of India and media, but also against their own country ultimately, because this is not going to give any credit to Bangladesh. And I think our diplomatic missions will be protected. I believe so, because I have been there many, many years. And I think the Bangladesh police and military are capable of doing it. But the very fact that these organizations or whoever, the right wing or whatever, are able to mount these kind of spontaneous action shows that there is a deeper conspiracy behind all this. Unfortunately, anodyne statements from the chief advisor's office or chief advisor himself, sometimes I feel that they are all hand in glove with this, that it is probably organized with the full support of this interim government, which of course they will deny. And then they will put out some anodyne statement saying this or that. Let me end by saying that in Bangladesh, there is a deep, in one section, there is a deep anti-Indian feeling, because their forefathers never wanted a free Bangladesh. They wanted to be Pakistanis, continue to be Pakistanis. And the Jamaat-e-Islami is the prime example of that. And many of the Islamists, other organizations also, because Jamaat-e-Islami has been a proxy and fifth column for Pakistan ever since 1971. And they have been also, hobnobbing with the Americans and others who have used them for this kind of purpose. So in my view, the current situation is very bad. Bangladesh is today a disaster zone. And I think unless the government really, I think the best way of Bangladesh now, best option for Bangladesh is to calm things down and have an early election. And if that does not happen, I'm afraid we will see more such violence because there is a big lobby, a powerful lobby, who do not want elections to be held, who want to hang on to power, who want to exercise all the power they're enjoying now. I'm afraid if that happens, then Bangladesh is in trouble.
And speaking of those elections, many would actually think, Tarakarta, that this sort of attack that is now being mounted is not spontaneous in the sense that we've seen the signs of it building up. And if not a tacit support by the administration or the regime there definitely has been some amount of tolerance towards it, which is why it's allowed such sentiment to fester. Is this also then an attempt to try and push elections as further as possible?
No, you're absolutely right in the tolerance of violence. I mean, we've been seeing this now for months together, right? This kind of thing happening, and they do nothing. The police effectively got beaten back. That's what we saw. Now, at least I'm happy to see that they've come back into some amount of strength. So they are there on the ground. That's a good thing. But is it an attempt to get elections off? I would agree with the ambassador. It does seem to me that way. And I would put this not without sort of going over the line that there are some parties who thought they had a larger base than they did. The most of the rural areas still have the mainstream parties are in support. They have a large base of support. So if the elections were just announced, I think 3 days ago or 4 days ago or something, and then this attack on this man happens. So there is definitely a sense that let's say if Jamaat-e-Islami comes to power, then that is what they want, that is what they're working towards, and I think there are a bunch of people supporting that. So it's a party like BNP, for example, they have a very strong hold on this country, and so does the Awami League. So it's not going to be so easy. So there you go. And I absolutely agree. The Prothamalu, if I'm not mistaken, or it was the Daily Star, which brought out a supplement on Liberation Day. I mean, it was just the standard supplement which they bring out every year saying, the glory. That was also part of the reason why they went and attacked these people. But these are planned attacks to wipe out all legacy of Mujibur Rahman, any reference to what happened then, which is really unfortunate. This is not the Bangladesh that one would hope would stabilize, under this government.
And a destabilized Bangladesh spells bad news for India. But before I get in more comments, I request all of you to stay on with us because we have some more information that's now trickling in. Of course, this is a volatile situation that we are currently in as far as Bangladesh goes. And the spillover effect could happen onto certain states in India. And that's really a concern that many are looking at. This is a video that we've accessed from West Bengal. This is in Petropol, where we're given to understand that anti-India slogans were being heard from the other side of the border. So this is a protest this is a video in which you see protesters hurling abuses, hurling anti-India rants from just across the border, from where people into the Indian side can actually hear these kind of comments. That's really now the issue of how this sort of sentiment is permeating not just into these political factions that seem to be ruling the roost there, or these radical elements that seem to be ruling the roost there, but also commoners perhaps are now partaking in this sort of ratcheting up of anti-India narrative. And that's really the bigger issue, Ambassador Chakravarti, also, isn't it? Because India needs to look at that too. Pakistan and China would want to fish in the so-called troubled waters of Bangladesh and spell trouble for India.
And the USA have been fishing in these waters and muddying it. And they do not want Awami League back in power, or the BNP, in my view. They are supporting the Jamaat-e-Islami and its allies, or whoever they are, because they want Jamaat-e-Islami to come to power, because obviously they've done some deal or something like that. Blaming India is an old habit in Bangladesh. Anything happens, the fallback and the default position is to blame India. And it seems to have gone into their DNA for whatever reason. And I think that I've heard it so many times. Anything happens that, oh, India got it done, India did it, etc., etc. Now, this comes out of a certain, obviously, mindset which has been built over the years because of our history, the legacy that we have, and of course the fact that the asymmetry really rankles in the smaller countries. So I think these are all factors we have to deal with. We are dealing with it, and I don't think, these anti-India slogans that you talked about at the border. Let me also say that some people will make these slogans just to keep themselves safe. Because the next day I find that the same people will come to the visa center and ask for visas. If you are so anti-Indian, don't come to India. Stay there. But that does not happen. They have to come to India because the people have requirements, medical and other things. So I think this is a facade sometimes. Some people have become anti-Indian or they are showing they are anti-Indian because they want to be on the right side of the mobs. So this is the kind of situation we are facing. So unless things settle down and we have elections and a proper government comes to power, then I don't think this is going to stop because this is already a very toxic mixture of politics, of interference, foreign interference, and all these things. So I wish Bangladesh well, and I hope they get out of this quickly.
And the political certainty or uncertainty of the future of Bangladesh as a democracy, Mr. Ali, is also under a cloud, many would say, because the two biggest parties, the BNP and the Awami League, one sort of has been pushed out of the picture, which is the Awami League, and the BNP has its own issues of fragmentation. So eventually, even when elections are held, what is the guarantee that these sort of radical elements are not really ruling the roost once again?
So before I address your question, I just wanted to make two remarks with my learned colleague's point. When I agree with both of them that the attack seems very organized and well orchestrated, and I also have no doubt about it, but I do not think the attack happened with the support of administration. That would be over exaggeration of what was happening on the ground. I have no doubt the administration had failed to protect the institutions, but saying that the attack happened direct or indirect support of the administrations would not be appropriate way of looking at the situations. The second thing also regarding its DNA in Bangladesh to blame India, I think those of us, including my learned colleagues, they also know that having anti-Bangladesh sentiment in West Bengal or in Assam or having anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh, it's in a kind of political fashion. Whenever there are situations like economic or other kind of things, the political leaders go for the easy thing. Okay, let's blame the neighbors. Let's blame the outsiders. So these remains some of the popular political concept. But when it comes to the administrative level, I think both the country's administrators and the at the government to government level, there was better understanding. However, right now the better understanding is at questions, and also it's important to understand people's sentiment. The reason currently the anti-India sentiment raised in Bangladesh, it's not only because people don't like India. Because I was reading a recent survey report that came out 3 months ago. The survey report clearly shows that Bangladeshis wants a more understandable relationship with India and don't like those rhetorics. But the point happens is that in the public perception, people are seeing that Sheikh Hasina, that which many people believe are responsible for the situation that happened during the July, August, and now taking shelter in India. And then when Mr. Hadi was assassinated, and the person who was involved with that assassination, a group of journalists came out with some photographs suggesting that these killers allegedly took shelter in India. Now, this I cannot prove right now because a legal court procedure needed to prove those evidence. But what happened is that when these information came out in the
based on that mere conjecture, we saw the kind of arson and violence that broke out there. People lost their lives. A Hindu man was tied to a tree and burnt alive. I mean, there really is no justification of what we saw in Bangladesh in the last 24 hours. But speaking about Sheikh Hasina, and I do want to speak to our panelists on that. Before that, we have some more information that's now trickling in. I request all of you to stay on with us because, like we've been discussing, Pakistan and its ISI is back to its dirty plot in Bangladesh. CNN News 18, in fact, has been tracking these developments since October. In the backdrop of the fall of Sheikh Hasina government last year, it's now clear that Pakistan's ISI had a role to play in what is unfolding today. In fact, what we are learning is that Pakistan's link has emerged so clearly in this crisis that from October, Pakistan established this ISI cell at the High Commission in Dhaka, which sort of put together this entire plot, is what we're learning via our intelligence sources, following which India had raised a strong protest as well, even summoned the Bangladesh's High Commissioner, raising an alarm. But Bangladesh, in cohorts with Pakistan and the ISI, seems to have let this pot boil, in fact add fuel to the fire to ensure that such scenes would eventually be seen on the streets of Bangladesh. Anand Narasimhan now joins us, getting us more details on this as well. Anand, what more can you tell us? How exactly has Pakistan been puppeting this entire or orchestrating this entire events as they unfold in Bangladesh?
Well, good evening, Poonam, and good evening to our viewers here on CNN News 18. On the 29th of October, that was when the ISI cell was established at the High Commission of Dhaka. And this was with the blessings of Mohammed Yunus, and there were pictures, and CNN News 18 had broken this on that day itself. In fact, you mentioned soon after, on the basis of News 18's media report, New Delhi actually summoned Bangladesh's High Commissioner and lodged a protest too. Thereafter, on the 19th of November, the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval raised this issue with his Bangladesh counterpart Khalilur Rahman, and this was on the sidelines of the Colombo Security Conclave Summit in New Delhi. Thereafter, this is now openly, it's now an open secret that the ISI is clearly meddling in and also trying to advise certain elements within the Yunus administration on how to stoke this anti-India sentiment and how to brew the entire public mood against the Awami League and Sheikh Hasina. In fact, Premier Intelligence Agency ISI's Major General and other officers were accompanied with General Shahid Shamshad Mirza in October on a 4-day tour to Bangladesh. They actually met with the National Security Intelligence and Directorate General of Forces Intelligence, DGFI officers in Dhaka. The people who went there, 1 brigadier, 2 colonels, 4 majors, intelligence officials from Air Force, Navy and supporting staff, they were appointed in the first phase at a special cell in Pakistan High Commission in Dhaka.
Right.
And that's the reason why whatever is happening in Dhaka seems to be orchestrated, controlled, provoked, instigated, planned by Rawalpindi. Poonam.
Right, Anand, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. And Tarakarta, like we were discussing, this of course should come as no surprise to anyone in India, because this sort of collusion between Pakistan and Bangladesh is not new, and it's not going to end in the near future, despite the fact that there may be elections that are held there.
I just want to bring one thing out. I mean, reference to what we said in this is the fact that what he said, that, you know, these people who killed this man was fled into India. That was released to the public, and that was bad enough. And then our High Commissioner was summoned and told to bring back these people. These people should be brought back to the most logical thing which the Yunus government could have done was to talk to the High Commission and said, look, these people may have fled there. Can you help us? And definitely India would stand up and help them. I really want to, because this is what added fuel to the fire. That is what. Number 2, the ISI link is expected. I mean, he said so. The army chief has said, we will attack you from the east. That is what the Pakistan army said. Now, my only faith is with Bangladesh's army. The army is a very stable institution. The chief is an extremely respected person. So one hopes, and I think we can see some kind of, stability from that side. But that the ISIs, I mean, the Pakistan embassy, the High Commissioner, look at the activities that he's up to. He's all over the place. He's in the universities. He's talking to certain other countries whom I will not raise at this point. But there is a very dangerous amount of activity going on there, which is not good for Bangladesh itself. And I don't think the ordinary Bangladeshis on the street they want stability. They don't want this. And this is definitely okay, I'm going to just say this out. This killing of this man, what is the motive? Why should, I mean, he was just another person who was part of this gang who was talking anti-India stuff and things. All of them were doing it. He was not anything unique. And by the way, that whole talk about Northeast India was started by Yunus, not by them.
Exactly.
They just took the lead from him. So let's put this squarely where it is rests. I mean, I don't think we should shy away from saying this. This man is not good for Bangladesh. They deserve better.
But you know, all of this, Ambassador Chakravarti, eventually boils down to what happened last year and the fact that Sheikh Hasina has been in India. A lot of this sort of tirade that we're seeing in Bangladesh is because India is being accused of sheltering someone we should not, which is in Sheikh Hasina. That is the allegation that comes in from Bangladesh's side. Given what has transpired in the last 24 hours and the risks that India could face along its borders and otherwise, do you think that there is a rethink perhaps required as to our strategy with Sheikh Hasina and keeping her here?
Well, let me first begin by saying that we did not invite her over.
Sure.
She was brought here by her own army, who requested in an emergency situation that that she may be killed, and that can we deposit her in India? That's what happened. And now they are saying that we are sheltering. We did not invite her. We did say, please come over, we will shelter you. Now, once she is here in Delhi, then and there were no convictions against her. So they kept on saying, hand her over. On what grounds? If she doesn't want to go, we cannot force her to. Then, of course, they did this, kangaroo trial and sentenced her to death. Then they again asked, so we said, look, we have a signed agreement between us, which is called the extradition agreement. You want to get her back? Please follow that agreement. But they are not willing to follow that. They are only indulging in rhetoric. She's a killer, she's this and she's that, hand her over. Such peremptory demands. The Indian government has been remarkably patient. And we have not really reacted to this kind of peremptory demands that they have been making. So we have simply said that if you want to come, if you want Hasina back, please come and can initiate extradition proceedings under the agreement, under the Indian law. That is what is going to apply. That nothing else will matter. Moreover, we are not a country which simply hands over, people who take refuge in India. Right from the days when Dalai Lama came to India. So I think we have a certain ethos, and I don't think that ethos will permit us to just hand over Hasina, and she'll be butchered. The day she lands there. The
Absolutely.
moment she steps
and that's the
down,
biggest concern India has, given the kind of scenes that we've seen in Bangladesh.
She did not get a fair trial, and she's unlikely to be treated fairly, because Bangladesh has a history of killing leaders even in jail. Let's not forget that. Everybody knows that. The leaders who fought for their independence and who were jailed went and killed in jail. That's the reputation.
And there definitely cannot be a repeat of what Bangladesh has seen in its bloodied history. The people of Bangladesh deserve better, and we hope that we do not see a repeat of what we saw in the last 24 hours there. But I have to leave it there. I thank you all for joining us here on Plain Speak.